by WUNC Chapel Hill. Today is December 4th, Monday, and your radio hosts are Vincent Parker and
Robert Dean.
We will be reading the news from the Dunn Daily, the Rayford News Journal, dated November 29th, Wednesday.
New Hope High coach named. He's done it all. Played for Bucks, NCAA, and 4 NFL teams. Former Hope County Buck, NCAA Aggie, NFL player, and college player coach George Small was named new head football coach at Hope County High School. The Hope County School Board held a special meeting Tuesday morning to confirm the rumors floating around town that Small will be taking over the program. Former coach David Jorgensen was relieved of his duties earlier this month after 2 years on the job. Hope High Athletics Director Gary Brigman said he received calls and resumes from about 12 people wanting a job. Hope High Principal Roger Edwards made the recommendation to the school board to hire Small, and a unanimous vote followed. Small played football under Coach Bill Cameron and graduated in 1975 from Hope High. He received a full scholarship to play football at NCAA and then went on to play in the NFL for the New York Giants and several teams under coaches like Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, and Chuck Noll. In college, he coached under the legendary Grambling football coach Eddie Robinson, along with many others. He played professionally with Giants, Denver Broncos, Green Bay Packers, and Pittsburgh Steelers. He also played for the Calgary Stampede of the Canadian Football League. He began coaching in 1988 at Langston University, and then went on to Savannah State, where Shannon Sharp was a player. He had stints with Tulsa, Florida A&M, Grambling, Kentucky State, Youngstown State, Hampton, North Carolina A&T, and most recently with Florida A&M. When asked how it feels, Small said, "I'm very ecstatic and very, very excited to be back, and you can't really put into words because this is full circle and it don't happen every year." He went on to say, "We're going to have a lot of fun and do a lot of teaching and coaching football and life skills that benefit the kids in the community with a new journey." When asked about the culture of football in Hope County and tremendous athletes here and why it doesn't always filter back to the high school football, he said, "I've heard that, and I'm not sure just yet where the disconnect is. We'll have to analyze the different variables and assess where we are and make a blueprint designed to address those concerns." Down in Florida, where I was, our Parks and Recreation football was called Pop Warner, and a Mr. Whitehurst down there does a great job with communities, parents, fathers, fusing all that together with middle school and high school. And they do the same thing in Texas, and I have been involved in that. Our program needs to filter down, and they all need to be on the same page organization-wise and schematics of offense and defense and organization, as well as the continued success of our middle school programs and growth in our community. Small was also asked about hiring a staff or working with some of the coaches that are already here, and he said, "I've been told I have an option to hire my own staff for this season. I will be looking at personnel who are already here, but I will be able to hire my own staff." Small says he plans to find a home in Hope County in the next few weeks and get to work right away. However, his position officially starts January 1st, 2018.
Man missing since May found dead in swamp. Korean War veteran Domingo Rivera Ramos, who went missing from Hope County home in May, was found dead last week, authorities said. Hunters discovered Rivera Ramos in a swamp in the Blue Springs area, called law enforcement, Hope County Sheriff Hubert Peterkin said. Foul play is not suspected in Ramos' death. The 83-year-old went missing from his home on the 600 block of Blue Road in the early morning hours of Monday, May 22nd. Family members reported he left the home sometime in the early morning hours between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m., while the rest of the household was asleep, making it impossible for his family to know which direction he went after leaving the home. He suffered from cognitive impairment and his health issues that required medication. Law enforcement officers scoured the county for Rivera Ramos, searching the area with the help of a highway patrol helicopter, boats, and search and rescue dogs, but were unable to locate him. Inclement weather hampered the initial search efforts. The family learned of Rivera Ramos' death on Thanksgiving Day, almost exactly 6 months after his disappearance, according to a post on the Facebook page set up to help Rivera Ramos. Yesterday was 6 months since my dad went missing, and I chose not to post because I wanted to focus on being thankful. I wanted to be I wanted to be thankful for all the good in my life and for the love of my family. I also wanted to be thankful for the saying, no news is good news, but that is no longer true. My father was found today, but not how we hoped. One of Rivera Ramos' daughters posted, I would like to thank everyone for your prayers, the reaching out by strangers, helping to spread news of our visual, and to the family and friends who also shared their love and strength. Rivera Ramos' son Jose Seda said it was a sad moment for the family, but asked that loved ones try to focus on the life that his father lived. Let's take this time to reflect on how good a person he truly was and how he tried his best to be the best father he knew how to be. We will all miss him greatly. We just have to remind ourselves that everything is in God's hands, Seda wrote in a post he shared on Facebook page. We might not understand the logic involved, but we must have faith in all things work for good for those who believe in Christ our Lord. Let's celebrate his life instead of mourning his death. God bless everyone. I love you. Obituary information and details on funeral arrangements were not immediately available.
Schools campaign audit. Fund balance still low, auditor says. The Hope County Board of Education received the annual school system audit results this month, along with some advice from the accounting firm on increasing the local fund balance. The accounting firm found that the school system's financial statement disclosures were neutral, consistent, and clear, and encountered no difficulties in dealing with management while performing the audit, according to a summary from Anderson, Smith & White, PLLC. The school system received a clean, unmodified report from the firm, meaning that the auditors did not encounter any exceptions with the numbers the school system reported, a representative told the school board. The auditors did suggest that the school board work to increase the amount of money in the school's general fund, which functions similar to a savings account. As of June 30th, 2017, the board's general fund reported fund balance of $462,442, a slight increase of $18,225 over the amount reported at June 30th, 2016. As recommended in recent years, we feel the board should continue to closely monitor expenditures and, if possible, take steps to increase its local fund balance reserves, the accounting firm wrote in a letter to the school board. For a district the size of Hope County, the fund balance is a little low, according to the report. The school system is one of the lowest locally funded education agencies in the state, the accounting firm stated. A high fund balance can be a double-edged sword, and that having a high fund balance can make securing additional local funding more difficult, board member Hank Richards said. The school board unanimously approved the audit. Energy savings. The school system is reaping the benefits of a plan put in place several years ago to reduce energy use at its school facilities. The school board also underwent a recent energy audit that saw outdated fixtures replaced with new, energy-efficient ones. The reduction in energy use has saved the school system millions on its utility bills, officials discussed during the board meeting. That's a savings of $4.3 million. We are extremely thankful and successful with that program, Superintendent Dr. Freddie Williamson said. A number of Hope County schools received a special recognition from the Energy Star program of the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Those schools were honored for superior energy performance, achieved through reducing their energy use by 35% and generating 35% fewer greenhouse gas emissions compared to similar buildings across the nation. Science Grant Program. The Science Grant Program at first brought dozens of Chromebooks and iPads to Hope students' hands, as well as a special science camp and even robotics tools. It was able to meet all the requirements of the grant program. The school system applied for a grant in 2014 from the Department of Defense Educational Activity, or DODEA, and received $2 million to buy iPads and laptops for students and to fund a science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, academy. The grant was intended to increase student achievements in STEM subjects. The grant was closed out this year, and the numbers showed improvement in participating schools' science and math test scores, according to Dr. Don Ramseur. The funds were used at 8 elementary and middle schools for students in grades 3 through 8. The schools had to have a certain percentage of students from military families enrolled to qualify for the grant funding. The program achieved 2 out of 3 science goals and 6 out of 7 mathematics goals, improving most related test scores across grade levels for participating students and meeting the grant's requirements, Ramseur said. Some of the programs associated with the grant will continue. including the Robotics Club, the STEM Summer Camp. The grant was one of the first explorations into putting computers or iPads into the hands of every school student. This later became possible through the One-to-One initiative funded by the Hope County Board of Commissioners. Other business. In other business, the Board of Education recognized schools that received honors for their implementation of the Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, or PBIS, system. The school board additionally approved plans to finance playground equipment upgrades, support for the City of Rayford's park improvements, and monthly a financial summary. The board held a closed session and met again in a called meeting Tuesday, November 28th, for the purpose of handling personnel matters.
A man killed while walking. A woman charged with hit and run. A man died Thanksgiving Day after a hit and run on Wayside Road, and authorities have arrested a woman from Rayford in connection with the incident. Andrew Scott Quintini, 20, of the 100 block of Harvest Lane, was killed when a vehicle struck him as he walked on Wayside Road in the early morning hours on November 23rd, officials said. Family members reportedly found Quintini lying in a roadside ditch about 2 hours after the incident. According to the authorities, his family called 911 and rescuers reported Quintini to Cape Fear Valley's Hope Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Officers with the North Carolina Highway Patrol arrested Sheila Denise Burke of 100 block of Sugarcane Drive in connection with Quintini's death. Burke is accused of allegedly hitting Quintini with her black Toyota Tacoma without stopping, then attempting to make a false report to Fayetteville police about the damage to her truck later the same day. Authorities charged Burke with death by motor vehicle driving while impaired, leaving the scene of an accident and driving left of center. Burke also faces charges of expired registration and filing a false police report. She was taken into custody November 23rd and held under a $200,500 secured bond for all of the charges. Quintini was a graduate of Hope County High School, according to his obituary, and planned to either attend school or go into the military, a September Facebook post from his sister said. Quintini was born in Pascagoula, Mississippi, to Woodrow Williams and the late Tina Quintini. He is survived by his father and his sisters Amanda Franco of Brady, Texas, Ashley Strauss of New Orleans, and Crystal Williams of Grambling, Louisiana. A memorial service will be held Sunday, December 3rd at 2:30 p.m. at the Heart of Texas Event Center in Brady, Texas. Herring Funeral Care and Cremation is handling the arrangement. There's a GoFundMe account to help pay for funeral costs. The fundraiser is available online at www.gofundme.com/remembering Andrew Scott Quintini.
Other stuff by Ken McDonald. It was the morning of deadline, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, except for a mouse. And then most of the ladies in the house when the mouse was discovered. Welcome to Tuesday morning at the News Journal, when Ashley, our office manager, reached into a box for a snack and was met with a food competitor. I was on the phone in the break room, my favorite place, when I heard the commotion. Ashley was either holding or pointing to a copy paper box. I can't remember, it was all blur. And she was attempting to say something, but the words weren't coming. I walked over and peered over the edge of the box, and there, among crackers or Pop-Tarts, I didn't really assess her snack choices, was a furry head, and it was as concerned about developments as the ladies. If it had been a snake, I would have gone all unchivalrous and summoned Catherine, but I am not particularly afraid of mice. I picked up the box and headed to the rear of the building. Actually, I found her voice by then. "Just dump the whole box, put it all in the dumpster," she said as I exited the room. Sounded like a good plan to me, but as soon as I crossed into the break room, the mouse jumped out of the box, hit the floor, and scurried behind a counter. WTH, I didn't know mice could jump. I was thinking it would be nice to have a .22 rifle, but I thought back to when I tried to dispatch an opossum 1 year after the little you-know-what got under the house and utterly destroyed our heating system. Basically, I shot up the basement. So instead, I engineered up on Mouse Boy's furry little self. I erected a barrier plywood, pieces around the counter, clamped and taped it all together, and placed some traps inside the compound. Oh yeah, and I set up a camera with night vision to capture the commotion. But you know how it turns out. Meantime, I have the break room to myself.
Growth. Landlocked schools and packed classroom size prompt waivers. The Hope County school system applied for class size waivers for several kindergarten through third grade classes at two elementary schools to allow for slightly larger classes than allowed under state standards. The state requires that those classrooms enroll no more than 23 children, but a few of the classes in two Hoke schools have up to 26 students. A constantly fluctuating student population due to the large number of children from military families is responsible for the issue at Rockfish Hoke Elementary, while inability to add classroom space at McLaughlin Elementary is the problem there, according to the waiver request documentation. The Hoke County Board of Education approved at its meeting earlier this month that the waiver request to be sent to the Department of Public Instruction for consideration. The schools attempted to dilute the class sizes this fall by adding a new kindergarten classroom at Rockfish Hoke Elementary and at Skurlock Elementary, according to Assistant Superintendent Dr. Deborah Dallas. The waivers have to be done individually per class, including classes divided by subjects such as math and social studies. The county requested 6 waivers for McLaughlin Elementary and 10 waivers for Rockfish Hoke Elementary, and 1 general waiver for art, physical education, and music classes. Moving students from a larger classroom to a smaller one, another typically doesn't work because of the highly fluctuating state of student enrollment, Dallas said. You have 22 and you might have 24, but as soon as you move that student, we're going to get another one. So there's been a lot of transit trying to monitor those numbers. The largest class at Rockfish Hoke County Elementary had 24 students, while others had between 19 and 22. The reason given on the waiver forms reported that the class sizes were due to an unanticipated increase in student population of an individual school in excess of 2% of the average daily membership of the school. Rockfish Hoke County is 60.3% military affiliated families living in poverty. Southeastern's Head Start program seeks to provide comprehensive early childhood education services in child health and mental health. Our goal is to serve the whole family. Therefore, the school has a significant transient population and has experienced an influx of students this fall, in excess of 2% of the average daily membership. An additional kindergarten classroom was established on September 18, 2017. However, the school continues to experience enrollment and classroom space is limited, the document said. Most of the Rockfish Hoke elementary classrooms range between 19 and 22 students, with a few having 23 or 24 students, according to the waiver paperwork. The situation was a little different at J.W. McLaughlin Elementary, where the largest kindergarten class had up to 26 students. The challenge there was marked in the emergencies or acts of God that impact the availability of classroom space or facilities section of the waiver. J.W. McLaughlin Elementary is blocked in with the Hoke County Jail on one side and the Hoke County Public Library and Rayford United Methodist Church on another, and public streets bordering the other two sides. The school does not have any room to expand or to add on trailers for additional classrooms, which is usually possible at other schools with more open space around them. We're very landlocked, so we are unable to add modulars like we would any other site, Dallas said. The school's district request to the city of Rayford to expand or add onto the school was denied, therefore eliminating the addition of mobile manufactured buildings similar to those that have been added to other school sites. All classroom space has been exhausted inside of the building, the waiver form stated. Most of the classes at J.W. McLaughlin have 18 or fewer students, but 2 kindergarten classrooms have 24 and 26 students respectively. The school system has not sought a waiver for class sizes in at least the last 2 school years, according to the forms. Numbers provided by the school system showed that more than 2,800 kindergarten through 3rd grade students attended the county's 8 elementary schools. The school system is meeting all of the local education agency or LEA class size standard on a school system board of education member Hank Richards said. Our only problem is at a few schools we're over in a few classrooms, he said. The class sizes are reported to the state twice a year, so Hope will be sending new updated This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a non-profit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. Your hosts are Vincent Parker and
Robert Bean.
And we are proud to serve you today.
Frog Holler philosopher Ron Huff. Facts no longer matter. A storm of controversy has descended upon Frog Holler after the mysterious disappearance of the magnificent spider that occupied the corner of the front porch. This creature was the subject of a past column and was admired by the resident humans for his craftiness and success as a predator. This success was founded on the entrapment of various species of flies, at least one stink bug, and even a very large grasshopper. Unfortunately, the exodus or demise of the spider happened in the absence of human observation and possibly under cover of darkness. Upon noticing its absence, I began to speculate on the events that may have transpired. There is no doubt that spiders have plenty of natural enemies that would wish them harm if they chose to think beyond their next meal. Within a matter of days, I discovered a communication in the form of an unbroken line of flies on the front porch table, which spelled out, "The flies did it." I have never known the flies to make this effort to communicate, especially as it left them open to mass extermination by me, but they were obviously trying to make a point by claiming responsibility. Was this meant to discourage spiders from building more webs in their area? Does this mean that spiders can read? Was this just a ploy, or were they really in some way responsible? The very next day, I witnessed a team of grasshoppers taking turns springing through a hole in the treacherous but now abandoned web. Was this their way of also claiming responsibility for the disappearance of the spider? I have noticed the spider getting fatter and fatter as it digested its never-ending procession of victims. Had it become so cumbersome that its own web couldn't hold it? Had it grown to such a threat that armies of insects had mobilized to destroy the menace? Shortly after the grasshopper display, another curious thing happened. Only a few feet from the original web, a new web appeared. As I inspected this work of art, I was astonished to discover that on the web was written, "Flies don't kill spiders, spiders kill flies." It now seemed that there was an all-out effort by all involved to make a statement regarding the missing spider. Was the spider actually missing, or had it just moved on to another site? With the other spiders denouncing the claims of the flies and grasshoppers that these lowly species had vanquished a mighty spider. How could 6 legs triumph over 8? If this rumor got out, the entire balance of nature could be upset. Flies and grasshoppers might become emboldened, determined to eradicate all spiders. As each species continued to spread its own propaganda, no evidence was being offered by any faction to prove its point of view. It had deteriorated into an ugly battle of fly messages, web writing, and grasshopper jumping. At this point, the truth became secondary to the desire of each species to advance its own story. Flies were now organizing into squadrons, training to overwhelm spider webs. The spiders were preoccupied with their web writing and were neglecting their fly catching. I'm still not sure what the grasshoppers were doing, but they were hard at it. My once tranquil front yard had been transformed into divided camps, all agitated by their own unsubstantiated beliefs about the missing spider. This discontent was rubbing off on other species that had nothing to do with the conflict, but were swept up in the madness. Things had gotten way out of hand, and I felt the need to discover the truth about the incident. Maybe the truth would restore things to their natural order, predators and prey going about their normal lives. It occurred to me that perhaps the event that had been witnessed by some neutral observer. There sat Rita May, the two-named cross-eyed cat who spends endless hours night and day resting in a front porch rocker. Nudging her from her nap, I put the question straight to her. She stretched, a little annoyed, and sprung up onto the nearby dogwood tree, pointing to a bird's nest. Of course, a bird had eaten the juicy spider. This news would surely put an end to this civil war. Upon convening the various factions and announcing my discovery, it seemed no one wanted to hear the truth. They now preferred their own truth. Facts no longer mattered. Division ruled. More later.
Video games, good or bad? The research by the University of Montreal found that Sustained gaming could lead your youth to neglect parts of their brains with devastating results. Parents are also advised to talk to their youth about the content of the games they play and encourage them to play with their friends rather than spending hours alone, cut off from the rest of the real world. In this society, everything is moving more rapidly, more computerized, and parents having less time to spend with their children. In most families, both parents are working to provide for the family. Nowadays, children do not fear the phrase, "go outside and play." The saying has now become, "I just bought you a new PlayStation, 7 new games for your birthday. How can you be bored?" The advancement of technology in video games has brought with the advancement of unhealthy lifestyles for our children. The negative effects of video game playing are more dangerous than many may realize. According to the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, obesity rates for adults have doubled and the rates for children have tripled just since 1980. We cannot blame this on video games alone. However, it is a coincidence that it was during the same years that the market for video games began to boom. Allowing our children to sit and play video games for hours on end cannot lead to a healthy lifestyle. Some results revealed that time spent playing games was related positively to aggression and negatively to school competence. Educational games were related to good academic achievement. When it came to attention problems, violent content was correlated positively and educational content negatively. Results suggest violent games and a large amount of video game playing are related to troublesome behavioral and academic outcomes. But educational games may be related to positive outcomes. Parental monitoring must be a significant factor in managing the video games children play. Because of the popularity of video games, completely eliminating them for your child's life might be difficult. A few tips. Knowing the rating of the video games your children play. Set limits on how often or how long your children are allowed to play video games, especially school nights. Monitor your children's video games, television, movie, phone, and internet content and usage. Supervise your children's internet use. There are many video games available for playing online. Take the time to discuss with your children the games they are playing or the other media they are watching. Get their feelings on what they see or observe. Share with other parents information about certain games or ideas for helping each other in parenting. For more information, contact Shirley Rush at the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Hope County Center at 875-2162 or email sarush@ncsu.edu.
Rose brings a hard, sad lesson, one-on-one with D.G. Martin. Stunned, North Carolina lost another monument. It came like a flash and I am still reeling. Charlie Rose was one of North Carolina's nationally best-known and most admired people. He was right up there with Michael Jordan, Billy Graham, and the late Andy Griffith as someone that people in the rest of the country know and admire. For stating that North Carolina had given to the world giants of 20th century journalism, Edward R. Murrow, David Brinkley, and Charles Garral, the Moon Guidebook to North Carolina says Charlie Rose carries their torch today. Like these predecessor giants, Rose brought Southern charm and spirit to the television screen. Polite, earnest, and a disarming twinkle-in-the-eye seriousness, he charmed the guests on his television programs and captivated his viewers. Even at the age of 75, Rose co-hosted the daily CBS morning show and a daily talk show for PBS and Bloomberg News. In addition to that amazing and grinding schedule, he made regular appearances on CBS Television's 60 Minutes. His work paid well, $2.5 million a year, and gave him a net worth of 10 times that amount, according to estimates in the media. I have had another reason to admire Rose. As host of UNC TV's North Carolina Book Watch, I have the weekly responsibility and privilege to interview North Carolina-connected authors. Rose's interviews were my great teachers. His careful preparation, his skillful listening that showed respectful curiosity about his guests and their achievements and opinions, his reliance on the flow of conversation rather than a hard and ordered list of questions, and his studied reluctance to interrupt made him a valuable role model. I could never be in this league, but Charlie Rose's example helped me do better, and I am grateful to him. I even found ways to include him in my North Carolina Roadside Eateries book. When I wrote about Skipper Forsyth's barbecue in Henderson, I suggested a post-meal pilgrimage to the site of Henderson High School, now Henderson Middle School, where television personality Charlie Rose was a star basketball player. When I wrote about Whistle Stop Cafe in Norlena, I suggested a visit to nearby Warren Plains, where Rose's father ran a store before moving to Henderson. I wrote, Rose credits his experience working in the store when he was 8 years old for his interest in listening to other people. He told the Savannah Morning News, I was a young kid and I wanted to have conversations with adults. You have to speak to their world. You have to know who they are, what they're about, what their curiosity is, what their experience is, what they're good at. People like to talk. People like to talk about themselves. Having taught me about interviewing, his example is now helping to teach us another lesson. Last week, the Washington Post reported that 8 women who worked or sought work with Rose accused him of sexual harassment by groping, walking around naked, and other provocations. The hammer came down hard and immediately. CBS News President David Rhodes fired Rose, explaining that because of extremely disturbing and intolerable behavior, he had been terminated. Despite Rhodes' important journalistic contribution to our news division, there's absolutely nothing more important in this or any organization than ensuring a safe, professional workplace, a supportive environment where people feel they can do their best work. Anticipating that some of us might say that this kind of conduct had been tolerated in the past, Rhodes stated, I've often heard that things used to be different, and no one may be able to correct the past, but what may once have been accepted should not ever have been acceptable. What may once have been accepted no longer is. This is the hard and sad lesson Charlie Rose's recent troubles teach us.
Viewpoints. Dems don't shrink from obligation by Thomas Mills. I admire Nancy Pelosi. The first female House Speaker has endured astonishingly virulent sexism, Princess Nancy, and outclassed decades of male speakers on the legislative front. She's one of the most pragmatic members of her party, yet she still manages to be a fundraising powerhouse in the doctrinaire worlds of Hollywood and tech. Simply put, she's one of the most remarkable people in politics. But Sunday morning was not one of her prouder moments. Chuck Todd of Meet the Press asked her what she thought of the 88-year-old Congressman John Conyers, who has been accused of ugly sexual misconduct. Should he resign, inquired Todd. He will do the right thing. She answered curtly, I'm sorry, but this evasion just won't cut it. The Democrats need to cut loose the wayward men in their ranks. That includes Conyers, and not just ranking judiciary member Al Franken and whoever else inevitably surfaces. We are experiencing a salutary change in standards. Powerful males, very much including politicians, no longer get to claim their female subordinates' bodies as a perk of office. For this revolution to carry forward, progressive men must not be granted an exemption. It was a good start when Harvey Weinstein got laughed at for trying to deflect attention onto the NRA, but that progress will stall if Democratic voter registration becomes a get-out-of-consequence-free card. Democratic leaders need to make clear that their party will not be selling indulgences. How Democrats handle this has high stakes. Cultural conservatives rightly note that politician ethics trickle down to society. The GOP is morally bankrupt, so the Democrats have to enforce the new code themselves. If Democrats don't send the right signal, millions of new consumers will see that our leaders don't really think the dignity of women is worth it, and they will apply that lesson to their own lives and workplaces. There is a more mundane reason to get rid of these guys. Since 2012, Democratic messaging has invested heavily in the war on women. Obama won a lot of women voters on the strength of standing up for their financial and sexual autonomy. The party took the message into overdrive in 2014 to the point where some candidates were all but running single-issue campaigns on it. It would be hard to reboot the strategy if Democrats don't punish the sexual abuse in their own ranks. Legacies are complicated, and Conyers will have his honor in the history books. Franken has some work in the Senate to be proud of, but Democrats have a particular responsibility in this moment. It's time for them to clean house. Thomas Mills is founder and publisher of PoliticsNC.com.
Obituaries. Robbie Francis Peoples, 88, of Rayford, passed away at First Health Moore Regional Hospital in Pinehurst on Sunday, November 26, 2017, after a brief illness. She was born December 12, 1928, in Macon County, Tennessee. She was a member of First Baptist Church of Rayford, where she served on numerous committees. She retired from Hope County Schools in 1993 after 22 years as a teacher assistant. She was a member of the Hope County Extension and Community Association, the Hope County Teacher Assistants Association, and the Library Board, and volunteered with the Rayford Hope Museum. Extension named her Volunteer of the Year in 1999 and 2000. She was also awarded the Rayford Hope Volunteer of the Year, K. Thomas Award, in 2001. Family and friends were her top priority. She loved cooking for them. Anyone who was a recent recipient of one of her pecan pies was very fortunate. She enjoyed working in the yard, decorating for every holiday, and pulling for the North Carolina State Wolfpack. A celebration of her life was held at 2 p.m. Thursday, November 30th, 2017 at First Baptist Church in Rayford, with the Reverend Tom Lee officiating. Burial followed in the Cross Creek Cemetery in Fayetteville. Memorials may be made to the Roundabouts Group or the Youth Group of First Baptist Church of Rayford, 333 North Main Street, Rayford, North Carolina, 28376. Cleo Coates Beasley, age 92, died Saturday, November 25th, 2017 at Glen Flora in Lumberton. She was born January 1st, 1925 in Johnston County to the late Mamie and Sam Coates. A private graveside service will be held at her home church cemetery in Johnston County. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made to the ACT campaign, care of Chestnut Street United Methodist Church, 200 East 8th Street, Lumberton, North Carolina, 28358. Online condolences may be made by visiting www.floydmortuary.net. Rebecca Rogers, 78 of Rayford, died November 20th, 2017 at the age of 78. She was born February 22nd, 1939. She was survived by her two daughters. Arrangements are handled by Louis Funeral Home. Harvey McDuffie III died November 14th, 2017 at the age of 57. He was born December 26, 1959. He is the son of Mrs. Gertha M. Walker Nichols of Patterson, New Jersey, and Harvey McDuffie Jr. of Rayford. The funeral was held Saturday, November 25th at 1:30 p.m. at McLaughlin Chapel AME Zion Church, with burial in the church cemetery. Dorothy Lou Baldwin Smith died November 20th, 2017 at the age of 83. She was born July 30th, 1934. The funeral was held Saturday, November 25th at 2 p.m. at First Missionary Baptist Church in Parkton. Committal was at Laurel Hill Church Cemetery in Lumber Bridge. And Gordon McNeely died November 20th, 2017 at the age of 54. He was born July 18th, 1963. The funeral was held Sunday, November 26th at 3 p.m. in Buffalo Springs Missionary Baptist Church, with burial in the church cemetery.
Super Street Input Meeting postponed. The North Carolina Department of Transportation has postponed a meeting to take public input on a plan to turn two busy intersections in eastern Hope County into super streets. The proposal suggests turning intersections of US 401 and North Parker Church Road and US 401 and Pittman Grove Church Road into super streets in an attempt to make them safer. The NCDOT originally planned to hold a public input session Monday, December 4th, but due to conflict, that session has been canceled. Because of the scheduling conflict for the open house, the NC Department of Transportation has postponed the meeting until early 2018. The department will announce the new date and location later, DOT officials said in a statement. A super street, according to the NCDOT, incorporates the use of median leftovers, which eliminates the left turn from a side street onto a main street and requires a vehicle that wants to turn left to instead make a right turn and then a U-turn. By limiting the number of conflict points between vehicles during traffic maneuvers, the potential of collisions is therefore reduced, state DOT officials said in a public meeting notice. The two intersections in question are currently uncontrolled by any kind of traffic light and force drivers who are trying to turn left from side street and onto US 401 to cross both directions of traffic. Because such an intersection increases the risk of collisions, NCDOT proposes directing drivers who want to go left to turn right onto US 401, then go a short distance and make a U-turn. NCDOT is building more super streets across the state because their design is safer, state transportation officials said in a press release earlier this month.
Man charged with drug trafficking. Investigators with the Hope County Sheriff's Office Special Operations Unit arrested a suspect last week for allegedly possessing cocaine. Deputies arrested Fortino Hernandez of Poppy Lane in Parkton on 2 counts of trafficking cocaine, obtaining a drug dwelling, and driving without a license. Hernandez was arrested November 20th and held under a $1 million secured bond. Authorities conducted a traffic stop on Hernandez's vehicle on North Old Wire Road. A canine drug-sniffing dog alerted, prompting a search. Officers located approximately an ounce of suspected cocaine. Hernandez was arrested at the scene.
Man charged in break-in. Investigators with the Hope County Sheriff's Office took custody of a suspect last week for allegedly breaking into a home and stealing a gun. Deputies arrested Wilmer D. Jesus Cruz, 24, of the 8700 block of Peachtree Drive in Sanford on felony charges of breaking and entering, larceny of a firearm. Authorities arrested Cruz November 17th. He was held under a $15,000 secure bond. Cruz was accused of allegedly breaking into a home on the 1300 block of Clan Campbell Drive in Rayford on September 21st. The resident of the home told deputies who responded to the scene of the break-in that the suspect had entered the home and numerous items went missing. Officers located one of the reportedly stolen items in Fayetteville and identified Cruz as the suspect. The Sanford Police Department arrested Cruz and transferred him to the custody of Hoke authorities.
Appointed to board. Rayford native Tommy McNeil was appointed to the board of directors of Triangle Healthcare Executives Forum. He brings more than 20 years of healthcare experience to the board, which develops leaders in the industry. He is a business development manager at Mid-South Medical in Durham. This is the Southeastern North Carolina radio reading service, the United Way Partner Agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University. Our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina radio reading service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at area code 910-672-1600 or toll free at 1-844-709-5656. The radio hosts are
Vincent Parker
and Robert Dean, and we are proud to serve you today. And now we will move to the Dunn Daily Record.
Card game erupts into shooting. A triple shooting in Irwin Monday night left one man critically injured and ended in a crash in Fayetteville and damage to a Irwin police car as a result of a head-on collision. The incident started when Gregory Allen Taylor, 24, of Spring Lake got into an altercation that resulted in gunshots near the intersection of North 15th Street and West M Street at 7:42 p.m. Irwin Police Chief Jonathan Johnson said the argument came during a card game. Mr. Taylor went to his vehicle and got a .40 caliber Beretta handgun. He remained outside the home, firing his weapon towards the residents. There were no other weapons involved in the incident. The bullets hit John Henry, 36, of Dunn, Cameron Thompson, 25, of Irwin, and Shannon Searles. Mr. Henry was hit by at least 3 bullets, according to the Chief Johnson. He was wounded in his midsection. He was airlifted by helicopter to a hospital and remains in critical condition. Mr. Thompson and Miss Searles received minor injuries. They were treated and released from an area hospital. Chief Johnson said officers heard the gunshots while helping with traffic associated with Irwin Christmas tree lighting. Chief Johnson and other officers started chasing the subject when they spotted his van leaving the scene of the shooting. The chase, with Mr. Taylor driving erratically at a high rate speed, proceeded through Irwin onto NC 217 through the town of Linden and eventually down US 401. The chase eventually ended when Taylor crashed his vehicle into a ditch near Fayetteville enforcement officers on the scene. Eventually his car suffered mechanical issues as a result of hitting the police car and stopped. Officers apprehended Mr. Taylor without incident. The officer in the car was not injured and there were no other injuries, according to Chief Johnson. "I am just glad we got him and no one else was hurt," Chief Johnson said. In addition to Irwin Police assisting were Cumberland County Sheriff, Fayetteville Police, Highway Patrol, Harnett County Sheriff, and Denton Police. "It was great teamwork," Chief Johnson said. "Mr. Taylor is now in a Harlan County jail with bond set at $300,000. He is charged with shooting into an occupied dwelling, possession of a firearm by felon, assault of government official, assault with a deadly weapon with intent to inflict serious bodily injury, and assault with a deadly weapon with the intent to kill." He made his first appearance in court at the Harnett County Courthouse, Lillington, Tuesday morning. Mark of Lillington and his court-appointed attorney. His next court appearance is December 19th.
This is the Dunn Daily Record from Monday, November 27, 2017. 1 year later, police still searching for Cole Thomas. Rewards total $15,000. On the 1-year anniversary of the date Cole Thomas went missing from Benson, Benson police have sent out another request asking for help in finding him. Mr. Thomas, who was 22, was reported missing last year on November 25th. He was last seen at approximately 1:10 a.m. near East Main Street in Benson. He was driving home to Florida with 2 friends when he suddenly stopped his car and ran away, vanishing, according to his friends. He was wearing a light blue t-shirt, a black long-sleeved undershirt, black pants with what is believed to be a white Nike swoosh logo, dark-colored curly shoes, and a blue ball cap with a white mesh back. A press release sent out by Benson Police said, "Over the past year, our police department, with assistance from the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, Johnston County District Attorney's Office, and other local and state agencies, has continued to conduct a comprehensive investigation into the circumstances surrounding Cole's disappearance. Despite the investigative efforts that have been made, Cole Thomas remains a missing person. So the Benson Police Department, our investigative partners, and the Thomas family are again appealing to the public to share any information they may have regarding his disappearance," the release said. Searches have continued for the young man, including at least one last month, but he was never found. Last summer, 4 men were charged in his disappearance. Julian Velez Jr., 34, of Dudley; Rodolfo de Leon Jr., 27, of Mount Olive; Anthony Riddle James Jr., 26, of Mount Olive; and Jeremy Brian Carpenter, 42, of Taylor Falls, Minnesota, were charged with concealing his death. As a reminder, said the press release, a $10,000 reward is being offered for any information that leads to the location of Mr. Thomas, and a $5,000 reward is being offered by the governor's office for any information that leads to the arrest and conviction of any person responsible for his disappearance. Chief Kenneth Edwards said, "As a parent myself, I can only imagine how difficult a year this has been for Cole's family. Our staff and our investigative partners have worked tirelessly to find answers for them, and we will continue to do so. Our commitment remains to finding Cole Thomas, no matter how long that takes, to reuniting him with his family, and to obtaining justice for him. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas and their family have our support, and they remain in our prayers. Anyone with information concerning the disappearance of Christopher Cole Thomas is encouraged to contact the Benson Police Department at area code 919-894-2091, or the State Bureau of Investigation Raleigh office at area code 919-779-8188, or toll free at 1-800-334-3000.
This is the Daily Record of November 29th, 2017. NAACP calls for officers' resignation. The Harnett County chapter of the NAACP presented its case on a 5-year-old police brutality accusation during a Tuesday afternoon press conference in the front of Dunn City Hall. Harnett County NAACP chapter president Carolyn McDougall, along with the founder and minister of Stop Killing Us SKU Solution Campaign, the Reverend Curtis Gatewood, addressed the media with allegations of abuse and cover-up by the Dunn Police Department surrounding the June 2012 incident. We are here today because of the law enforcement's injustice to a victim and treatment of a victim. Mrs. McDougall said no matter what crime has been committed, law enforcement is responsible for the safety and protection of anyone in their custody, especially those that are secured in handcuffs. The incident sparking the controversy took place in June of 2012 during a traffic stop for speeding involving the driver of a car, Seneca Jackson of Benson, and 2 Dunn police officers, Lieutenant Kerry Jackson and former officer Dallas Autry. Mrs. McDougall called for the resignation of Lieutenant Jackson immediately for a full investigation to be conducted by the city. We plan to meet with city officials to find out where we go from here and find out what happened, Mrs. McDougall said. It's sad that you might be stopped by the police officers that you don't know if you can walk away alive and well. 2 officers were responsible for Mr. Jackson's arrest after he fled the scene of an initial traffic stop for speeding, leading police on a brief high-speed chase that ended with Mr. Jackson pulled onto the shoulder of a roadway. After finally getting out of the vehicle in the direction of the officers, Mr. Jackson was ordered to the ground before being approached by the 2 who can be seen in the video with their weapons drawn. Mr. Jackson hesitated in complying with the officers and was eventually forced to the ground by the 2 officers. After the man was restrained by Officer Autry, Lieutenant Jackson can be seen in the video kicking Mr. Jackson in the side while he is handcuffed to the ground. At the time of the incident, B.P. Jones was the police chief. Our investigation found that not only did the Dunn police officer Kerry Jackson and others on the scene fail to protect Mr. Jackson, Mrs. McDougall said, Lieutenant Jackson violated and assaulted him knowing the victim was unable to defend himself. Mrs. McDougall didn't stop her accusations with the police on the scene. She also accused both city and police officials of covering up the incident. In addition, during our investigation, we found that city officials were aware of this violent act on Mr. Jackson, Mrs. McDougall said. When it occurred, not only was no action taken, it was covered up. How many more have been covered up? Mrs. McDougall said when city officials were approached about the incident, they became elusive. When the city officials were recently confronted about this assault, their response was because the case was 5 years old. They did not want to be bothered with it, she said. Wrong answer. Mrs. McDougall also told the media and bystanders there was no excuse for the city not to release the details of the incident. We didn't know why we didn't know and why wasn't we aware when the assault took place, she asked, or even a month ago when the assault took place. Or even a month ago, they claimed to be aware of the video. City Manager Stephen Neushofer said Lieutenant Jackson is not currently on suspension and continues to perform her assigned job duties. She has been with Dunn Police for 19 years. He released the following statement. As City Manager, I am the final decision maker for personnel matters. Therefore, it is inappropriate for me to comment on the specific actions in the video. I want to assure the residents of Dunn that I expect the highest level of professionalism and accountability for actions taken by an employee of the city. Dunn city officials were reviewing actions taken by the Dunn Police Administration following the 2012 incident to ensure that concerns were appropriately addressed. City Council member Dr. Gwen McNeil was the only city official present during Tuesday's press conference. She said she came to learn more about what is going on. I think it's a shame that 5 years have elapsed and this is the first time I've heard about this. I saw the footage on TV. I thought it was unprofessional, she said. I just came to find out what is going on. I don't know if at the time she was on administrative leave or not. No injuries were reported by Mr. Jackson, who told the Daily Record earlier this week. He was also tased, an action that is not visible during a video, which was obtained and released by Raleigh television station WRAL during the altercation. He also indicated that he hasn't been Dunn since the night of the incident. Because of what happened to me in 2012, I don't go to Dunn anymore, he said. Mr. Jackson was not present at Tuesday's press conference. For his role in the 2012 incident, Mr. Jackson was placed on probation for 3 years after being charged with felony attempting to elude police. Officer Autry resigned in January after being the subject of another investigation, while Lieutenant Jackson remains with the department and is now supervisor of the Criminal Interdiction and Narcotics Unit. The call for an investigation comes as the newly chosen police chief is set to take charge of the force later this week. Charles Chuck West accepted the job, and his first day will be Friday. As part of his job in the Wake County Sheriff's Office, Chief West performed internal affairs investigations. As for any criminal allegations or further actions to be taken by the Harnett and Lee County District Attorney's Office, D.A. Vernon Stewart declined to comment. "I have no comment on the case," Mr. Stewart said. "I'm letting Dud Police handle it internally." In addition to the charges he faced following the incident in 2012, Mr. Jackson has also been arrested on drug charges both prior to and after the incident in 2012. Mrs. McDougal promised another press conference at a yet announced time at City Hall.
False idols, cracks and pedestals from the Goldsboro News Argus. Apologies often offer too little, too late. Such can certainly be said for the victims of the increasing number of alleged sexual predators being named publicly. The latest in the cavalcade of fallen stars might be the hardest for those of us in the media to stomach. Charlie Rose, a pillar in the journalistic community and once ranked among the state's most notable hometown boy makes good stories, is but the latest in a string of cascading dominoes to fall in succession. We suppose, statistically speaking, it is no surprise that X amount of the rich and famous, the Hollywood elite, the media darlings, and the veritable who's who in Washington are proving to be at best serial batterers and at worst out-and-out pedophiles. The same might be true for any subset or demographic of people per capita. But Rose hits home for those of us who looked up to him as an icon in our chosen industry. He would ask any question, regardless of how controversial the topic, of any of his guests, regardless of how powerful they might have been. None of that matters now, nor should it. Bill Cosby, Roger Ailes, Bill O'Reilly, Harvey Weinstein, Roy Moore, Kevin Spacey, Louis C.K. Russell Simmons, Senator Al Franken, NBC reporter Mark Halperin, NPR executive Michael Oreskes, and the list goes on, all taken down by a woman's well-timed accusation when others before them had either mistimed their allegation or been too scared to come forward. Think back a tick and you might realize this is not a new phenomenon. Clarence Thomas and Bill Clinton, Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, men of wealth or in positions of power have, forever it seems, been seemingly above the law when it comes to exerting their influence over women and men in lower positions to pressure them for sex or a fondle here and there. There was no recourse for the victims for fear of reprisal. Many were forced to settle, if they did speak out, for financial settlements in lieu of any justice or the chance to prevent another from falling victim to their aggressor. We are warned, however, there is nothing gained through the worship of false idols. Rose's apology and claim that he has learned a great deal from these allegations being made public is worthless to the women he victimized and to the aspiring journalists who emulated his professional contributions. But he and the other powerful people recently named have this in common. They were not endowed with the power they exalted over their victims. That was granted to them by we who revered them perhaps a little too much. If we learned anything as a society after seeing star and politician and industry titan alike fall in disgrace, it is this: the famous are mere mortals, as are we, and their wealth and notoriety make them no more infallible than you or I.
Woman charged with child abduction. A New York woman was arrested this weekend in Harnett County on charges she illegally took a child. According to Harnett County Sheriff's reports, Karima Ruth Melendrez, 20, of Buffalo, New York, is charged with the second-degree kidnapping and abduction of children. Both charges are felonies. Miss Melendrez told Sheriff Deputy she took the juvenile from a male subject who attempted to harm her at another residence. The report indicates she fled the scene after she took the juvenile. The incident took place at a residence on Hattie Street, which is a Cameron address in Harnett County. In other unrelated cases, Kyle Joseph Marion, 21, of Lillington, was charged with burglary by non-enforced entry larceny after breaking and entering and processing and concealing stolen property. He was held on a $50,000 bond at the Harnett County Jail. Robert Clayton Mozingo, 20 of Dunn, was charged with burglary by non-forced entry, all other larceny, and possessing and concealing stolen property. Bond was set as $10,000 in the case. Williams Jonathan Hardy, 37 of Irwin, was charged with felony obtaining property by false pretenses. He was held by the Harnett County Jail with a bond set at $1,000.
Political polarization. Parties differ on government scope by John Hood, Raleigh. Most voters in North Carolina and the rest of America cast ballots reliably for either Democratic or Republican politicians, even if the voters themselves don't belong to a party. That's clear evidence of political polarization. Still, voters don't just come in two categories. There are Democrats who favor restrictions on abortion, Republicans who favor higher taxes on the wealthy, partisans who disapprove of their leaders' personal behavior, and lots of disagreement across the two coalitions on other issues. So what truly separates Democratic-leaning voters from Republican-leaning ones? According to the latest voter typology study from the Pew Research Center, one of the strongest predictors of partisan leanings has to do with the size of government. If you had to choose, the Pew questionnaire reads, would you rather have a small government providing fewer services or a bigger government providing more services? In most of the recent past, smaller government has been the more popular answer to this question. More to the point, the response bears a strong relationship to party preference. The 2017 Pew typology of voters consists of 8 different voting groups, 2 core Republican constituencies, 2 core Democratic ones, 2 that lean Republican, and 2 that lean Democratic. I don't have room here to describe these 8 typologies in great detail, but perhaps thumbnail sketches will suffice to make the point. On the Republican side, disproportionately upscale core conservatives and disproportionately rural country-first conservatives are the most reliable GOP voters. Their primary areas of disagreement are on foreign policy, trade, and immigration. 2 other groups, the mostly pessimistic market-skeptic Republicans and the mostly optimistic New Era enterprisers, contain lots of unaffiliated voters and express plenty of disagreements with the Republican platform, but they vote Republican most of the time. On the Democratic side, Pew calls the most loyal groups solid liberals, disproportionately wealthy and secular, and disaffected Democrats, disproportionately poor. A third group, Opportunity Democrats, are notably more optimistic about the future and favorable to business than the first 2. Slightly more of them identify as unaffiliated or leaners than as Democrats. A final group, diverse and devout, is just what the name implies, racially diverse, older than average, and often in disagreement with Democrats on social issues and other matters. Still, most vote blue most of the time. When it comes to the size of government, the 2 coalitions are easy to differentiate. All 4 GOP groups say they want smaller government by at least a 22-point margin. Core conservatives are nearly unanimous at 93%. All 4 Democratic groups say they want larger government by at least a 21-point margin. Solid liberals are solidly in favor at 80%. For the foreseeable future, Democratic politicians will talk a lot about how government programs help people and solve problems. Republican politicians will talk a lot about how government programs often cost more than advertised and make problems worse by producing unintended consequences. Politicians will say these things because they believe them for the most part, but also because those are the messages that unify their respective electoral coalitions. John Hood is chairman of the John Locke Foundation and appears on the talk show NC Spin. You can follow him at John Hood NC.
Get out the butter and pancakes, here comes the syrup. Once again, we have all survived Thanksgiving, which is a reason to be thankful all by itself. Now that we've all recovered from, as one story in our paper so succinctly put it, our tryptophan-induced comas, we can now prepare ourselves for the next wave of celebration and cake and commercialism and overly soaked in capitalistic fervor while being marinated in tons and tons of artificial happy. That's right, I'm talking about the phenomena known as Christmas time in the 21st century. You know that thing the majority of us get caught up in each year at this time? The thing that fills our stockings and the drape that sits under the tree with a deluge of over-advertised, neatly wrapped gifts that most people will not only never get much use out of, but will most likely put them away somewhere only to be seen when the closet is clean, or out of a charity yard sale that is about to take place. That's right, the spirit of the Grinch and Ebenezer Scrooge still keeps a reminder in the air that we're spending way too much of our hard-earned dollars on Christmas. Not just on gifts, but on the other drivel that goes along with it. You know, the lights that hang on the eaves of your gutters, the lights that have become synonymous with accidents happen closest to home. You know, when Dad falls off the roof trying to change the one light bulb that leaves the Rudolph's nose without his red glow to lead Santa into the foggy night. Then he ends up in the emergency room with 2 broken ribs, a sprained ankle, and a concussion from the fall and subsequent sudden stop that accompanies such events. Let's don't forget Mom. You know, she's been trained and drilled in all of the holiday cooking and baking that goes with the season. She spends hours in the grocery store looking for all she needs to fix the candy and bake all the pies. Then she spends even longer trying to find the recipe that her great-grandmother left to be decoded by generations to come. Then upon finding said recipe, she begins the task of mixing just enough of this and a little more of that until she has created a concoction so sweet that it will put her father and the other diabetics in the family into a sugar-induced coma for the next month, which will give her the opportunity to check on Dad and his injuries as she takes him to the ER. Finally, we have the children, those poor unindoctrinated little souls whose only mission on Christmas is to be overwhelmed by the number of toys that lie under the $350 fully illuminated, completely frocked tree. Yes, even Junior and Sissy have a role to play in the commercialized, trivialized holiday season. They must sit around for hours trying to figure out if what's wrapped up is what they've seen on television and exclaim to their parents that they must have for Christmas for the last 6 months. Sissy will just not be herself if she doesn't get at least 6 different variations of electronic gadgets that do little more than cause the sale of batteries to skyrocket by New Year's Day. And there's little Junior. He is perhaps the most targeted and most coveted of all the victims of holiday drivel and commercialization. He is told that he must ask for everything from the 5th Santa he's been in the last 2 weeks. That will make his formative years even more geared towards dependence on the American industrial complex. He is the victim of nothing more than greed and fervor that will surely lead us all into a path of hubris and confusion. So as you go about your holiday shopping and decorating and such, I ask you to keep one thing in mind. One thing that will help you through the stress and anxiety that comes with all of the drivel. Christmas is about family, friends, and the birth of the Lord and celebrating. I know I have spent the last few words poking fun at how we commercialize about how the commercialization of Christmas has taken over and driven us to a point that overlooks the vast chasm that lies between us and the true meaning of the holiday. And if that's good or if it's bad, I guess it really doesn't matter. As long as everyone looks past all of the goofy, silly, and annoying things that have become part of the holiday in recent history and remember that it's not about the money, it's about a whole lot more. Happy holidays.
Facebook forum. Superintendent goes live. A few stumbles on first try, but goal is to hold quarterly events. Harnett County School Superintendent Aaron Fleming was live on Facebook last week for his 5th town hall event discussing the school's administrative priorities. The first Harnett County Schools public forum of its kind, the Facebook Live event launched a little after 6 p.m. Tuesday. There were 4 previous meetings, September 19th at Harnett Central High School, September 26th at Western Harnett High School, October 16th at Harnett Primary School, and October 18th at Overhills High School. Dr. Fleming began by addressing 4 priority areas he called the legs of a table and the foundation of excellence: infrastructure, student opportunities, staff support, and the celebration of successes were what the superintendent emphasized. The superintendent touted the revamped website and readily available information via social media and the ongoing construction of Ben Haven Elementary. He said the school is coming along nicely and is planned to be open in fall of 2018. As around 170 people were viewing the live streaming town hall event, Dr. Fleming answered his first question about how often Facebook Live forums like this one might be held. The superintendent admitted to having technical difficulties in receiving and viewing questions from Facebook viewers, He said the school system hopes to do online events like this one quarterly. In between questions, Dr. Fleming talked about growth and the school board's prioritized facility needs list, admitting that he sometimes loses sleep wondering where every child will attend school. In order to accommodate growth, there is need for a new high school, a new middle school, and a couple of new elementary schools, Dr. Fleming said, responding to a question about being behind on building schools. He said a lot of districts are behind. I don't know that we'll ever have enough seats for all of our students, he said. The superintendent strives to get children out of pods and huts. Dr. Fleming mentioned the cost of buses and jokingly presented the concept of a $95,000 bus sponsorship. Another question rolled in about translating Harnett County Schools or HCS website and some of the handouts and mailers. Dr. Fleming was informed that the website is currently translatable and said the school is working on print materials in Spanish for parents who do not speak English. After several viewers asked about gun safes in schools, Dr. Fleming said he has been in communication with the school board and the Harnett County Sheriff's Office. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure our schools can be the safest they can be, he said. Every day I come onto this job, school safety is on my mind. We can never be too safe. Dr. Fleming responded to a question about North Carolina education lottery money, asking how it is dispersed. He said it is sent to the county and spent on school construction.
Wife's private photo album makes its way onto the web. Dear Abby, 6 months ago I asked a close female friend to help me prepare a gift for my husband for our 5th wedding anniversary. I wanted to create a photo album of a sexy nude photos of myself. Her excellent camera work provided me with a wonderful collection and my husband loved it. I recently found out on social media that my girlfriend's husband viewed and copied my private photos and shared them online with mutual male friends of ours. I'm devastated. My girlfriend is sorry to the max. My husband isn't yet aware of my exposure to others. I don't want to tell him, but at the same time, I don't want some guy spilling the beans. My girlfriend is helping to stop the sharing of my pictures. Should I hope for the best or should I tell my husband? Ashamed in the USA. Dear Ashamed, inform your husband immediately about what happened because he needs to hear it from you. Your friend's carelessness in allowing her husband to see and share the photos was deplorable. It is nearly impossible now that those images have been posted online to stop their proliferation. That your friend's husband would display such immature and poor judgment by showing them around is shocking. Dear Abby, my friend and I are at opposite ends of the political spectrum. I am conservative, she is liberal. We do our best not to argue about our strongly held views, but sometimes we are unsuccessful. My problem is she'll have 3 TVs going all tuned to her favorite political channels while doing housework. I find it annoying. I usually leave the room when she's going to do prolonged work in our home office and informs me that she'll be listening to her channel. It's the 3 TV thing that I would like stopped. What do you suggest? Inundated in Washington. Dear Inundated, your wife should show you the same consideration that you show to her. In this case, she does not have to have 3 TVs blaring her channels throughout your home while she does the house cleaning. She should have 1 television set in the room she is in. Dear Abby, my husband had not seen a dentist in 18 years. I come from a family of dentists and dental health is important to me. When I finally convinced my husband to go to the dentist because he'd broken a front tooth, he ended up needing 8 extractions. I'm happy he finally saw a dentist, but he rarely wears the bridges the dentist made for him. He looks like a jack-o'-lantern, and I'm embarrassed to be with him in public. I'm having such a hard time with this, and I no longer know if I can stay in this marriage. He's a good man and a great husband and father, but his lack of teeth is almost more than I can handle. Any advice on how I can get him to wear his dentures daily? Embarrassed in New Hampshire. Dear Embarrassed, your husband may not be wearing the bridges the dentist made because they are uncomfortable. You may be able to convince him to wear them by encouraging him to return to the dentist who made them and have them adjusted until they fit properly. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a profit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts are Vincent Parker
and Robert Bean,
and we are proud to serve you today.
Shaun of the Red with Shaun Savarese, Living My Dream 2017, Part 1. I remember how I would read the newspaper as a child. I would flip the front page aside and smear the inserts all over the living room floor to get to the comics. I cherished the illustrated brain teaser, Slylock Fox. I looked forward to it in color every Sunday. I read the newspaper as an adolescent, too. I would peel each dog-eared page back until I saw the header that read sports. I liked to look at the standings and the box scores and read about how my favorite team fared. It wasn't until early in my adult life that I began to read the newspaper for the news. I would buy the thickest Sunday edition of the New York Times, USA Today, or the Wall Street Journal and drill down into the articles with a pencil and a highlighter. I like to find the facts that could have been left out, the statistic that very few knew. Today, I write for the newspaper, and honestly, it's a dream come true. Since I submitted the first news assignment and drew praise from my journalism professor, I've had tunnel vision. That was 2004, and the professor was veteran Associated Press reporter Mike Hill, the man whom I credit for designing my dream of becoming a news reporter. Though I've worked in and out of the media for a decade, this past year has been the most stable and consistent. So I'm taking this opportunity to reflect on the stories I've told and the people I've met while reporting for the Daily Record this year. On January 2nd, Jorge Luis Portello Jr. was born at Betsy Johnson Hospital. At 21 inches long and 8 pounds, 12 ounces, was the first baby born in Irwin this year. Jorge's mom glowed with happiness. His father beamed with pride. The feeling in the room was one of hope and joy. My dream of reporting the news was being fulfilled by this young couple pursuing their dream of parenthood. What a blessing. Just 3 days later, I spent the first of several hours on the telephone with the father of a murder victim, and the unjust nightmare of this courageous man continues to fuel my dream further. At nearly 80 years old, Edward Bowman continues to fight for his late daughter and fight against what he considers to be an injustice. She was murdered by a soldier at Fort Bragg. His passionate poise and endurance amazes me. In early February, I first met Dunn Area Chamber of Commerce 2016 Man of the Year, Robert Carr. Since that time, I've had the pleasure to sit and speak with Mr. Carr several times about the Dunn Area History Museum. I'm impressed with how much has been accomplished by Mr. Carr and Mark Johnson, Museum Vice President. As overhangs and signage on the Prince Building were installed last week, I eagerly anticipate being one of the first to see what the museum instills in downtown Dunn. Another 3 days after meeting Mr. Carr, I spoke to an elated resident of the Plainview community who won tickets to Super Bowl 51 in Houston, Texas. Insurance agent and die-hard Carolina football fan Michael Hudson received a ticket for him and one for his wife Elizabeth, an all-expense-paid flight, hotel stay, and $250 incidental cash from former Panther Charles Tillman. In an ever more unlikely twist of good fortune, Mr. Hudson correctly predicted the final score of that historically dramatic game: New England 34, Atlanta 28. Moments like these, some special, some surreal, some circumstantial, and some stupendous, they happen every single day. As we climb upward toward the new year, I will continue to share with you the moments that made up my 2017, the year I have spent living my dream. Shaun Savarese is a reporter with the Daily Record. You can reach him by calling area code 910-230-2040, or you can email ssavarese, SSAVARESE, at mydailyrecord.com.
How to protect yourself from peripheral artery disease. PAD is an under-the-radar disease that affects up to 12 million Americans. Dear Savvy Senior, for the last 6 months or so, I've been having problems with my hips and legs cramping when I walk. Although they feel better once I stop, I thought it was just because I'm getting old. But my friend was telling me about a leg vein disease called PAD, and he thinks that I have it. What can you tell me about this condition? Dear Limping, the health condition your friend is telling you about is known as peripheral arterial disease, or PAD, which is an under-the-radar disease that affects up to 12 million Americans. It happens when the arteries that carry blood to the legs and feet become narrowed or clogged over the years with fatty deposits or plaque, causing poor circulation. But you also have to be aware that because the PAD is a systemic disease, people have it or are almost much more likely to have clogged arteries in other areas of the body like the heart and neck and brain, which greatly increase the risk of heart attack or stroke. Few symptoms. Unfortunately, PAD does go undiagnosed and untreated way too often because most people that have it experience few, if any, symptoms. The most common symptom, however, is similar to what you're expecting or to what you're experiencing. Pain and cramping in the hip, thigh, or calf muscles, especially when walking or exercising, but usually disappears after resting for a few minutes. Another reason PAD is underdiagnosed because it has many people assuming that aches and pains go along with aging and simply live with it instead of reporting it to their doctors. Other possible symptoms to be aware of include leg numbness or weakness, coldness or skin color changes in the lower legs and feet, or ulcers or sores on the legs or feet that don't heal. Are you at risk? Like most other health conditions, the risk developing PAD increases with age. Those most vulnerable are people over the age of 50 who smoke or used to smoke, have elevated cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, are overweight, or have family history of PAD, heart attack, or stroke. African Americans are also twice as likely to have PAD as Caucasians. If you're experiencing any symptoms or if you're at increased risk of PAD, you need to be tested by your doctor or vascular specialist. He or she will probably perform a quick and painless ankle brachial index test, which is done by measuring your blood pressure in your ankle as well as your arm and compare the two numbers. With early detection, many cases of PAD can be treated with lifestyle modification, including improved diet, increased physical activity, and smoking cessation. If lifestyle changes aren't enough, your doctor may also prescribe medicine to prevent blood clots, lower blood cholesterol and blood pressure, and control pain and other symptoms. For severe PAD, the treatment options in inflating a tiny balloon in the artery to restore blood flow, then removed, the insertion or a stent to reopen the artery, or a graft bypass to reroute blood around the blockage. To learn more about PAD, visit the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute at www.nhl.gov/health/educational/PAD.
Elliott to focus on one sport, golf ride to upstate worth the wait. Mark Whitman has proven himself as a coach in softball and girls golf. He may have some potential as an agent as well. Whitman advised Triton senior Catherine Elliott to wait before committing after she received partial offers from Belmont and UNC Charlotte. Sure enough, USC upstate coach Todd Lawton submitted a near-full scholarship offer that the Tri-County 3A Conference Player of the Year found to her liking. Multi-sport performer Elliott, who has been a vital player for the Hawks in basketball and softball, will finally focus on one sport on the college level. She's made a good choice, Whitman said. I've heard a lot of good things about Coach Lawton. Elliott wants to study biology with aspirations for pre-med. Her career goal is anesthesiology. Elliott's dad, Will, played golf at Campbell in 1979 through 80 when Wendell Carr was the CU coach. After averaging 39.8 strokes for 9 holes as a junior, her average dipped to 75.3 shots per 18 holes as a senior. She had a low round of 73 this season, tied for 11th in state. Elliott was 11th in the NCH SAA 3A tournament at Foxfire in October, shooting 89.74, 163. She has become a lot more mature, Whitman said, worked more on her mental approach than her swing. Elliott has family not too far from the upstate campus in Spartanburg. She should benefit from narrowing her competitive realm to a single pursuit, as well as strength training and nutritional emphasis at the next level. It's going to be a lot different considering my focus has been on golf, basketball, and softball during each season, Elliott said. I'm looking for my focus on just golf to help me improve a lot more. Lawton is a PGA member who also coaches the men's team at Upstate. Definitely want to work on my short game, Elliott said.
Home Care and Hospice Month. One man's story. Harnett County recognized National Hospice Month by presenting a proclamation declaring November Home Care and Hospice Month to Dr. Susan Beverly of Community Home Care and Hospice in Lillington earlier this month. Dr. Beverly sat down with former hospice patient T.C. Miller this month to talk about what hospice does, can do, and how it is misconceived. One man's story. Mr. Miller, 89, was born February 4th, 1928. He was born and raised in Harnett County, south of Benson, near Hodges Chapel, and lived 69 years with his late wife Mildred, north of Benson in Johnson County. They had 2 children, Phyllis Porter of Raleigh and Terry Miller of Angier. Mr. Miller grew up on the farm in the time when his parents were paid 50 cents daily to chop cotton from sunup to sundown. He lost part of his right hand in the cider mill accident at 5 years old. I was raised on a farm and came up in hard times, he said, of life in the 1930s. He faced another period of hard time later in life when both he and Mrs. Miller required hospice care from Dr. Beverly and community home care at hospice in Lillington. Mr. Miller spent 54 days in the hospital after waking up early one morning with a terrible stomach ache. I told my son to call the nurse, he said. She came and did my vital signs and rushed me right down to get the MRI. When I came back to the room, there stood 2 doctors and 2 nurses, the 2 doctors in their white jackets. The doctor told Mr. Miller if they did not operate immediately, he would not live much longer. His intestine had blown out and the chance of survival was 50-50. The next day after surgery, I had dry heat all day and I couldn't stop it, he said. They tore all the stitches loose and they had to cut me open from my chest bone to my tailbone. Sewing the wound closed again was not an option. The doctors had to use a wound pump. They knew it would be a slow process, but said it does work. Mr. Miller spent several days with an open wound going through rehabilitation when a nurse recommended a skin graft to his doctor to close the wound. He looked at her and looked at me and said, "Why didn't I think about that?" he said. For more than 2 years leading up to Mr. Miller's medical operations, his wife had been receiving hospice care herself in the family home north of Benson. She was diabetic, her neuropathy, and heart problems. When he returned home, they were both on hospice, sharing a doctor. A few months before she passed away, the couple spent time in their chairs talking about how good their lives were and how much they loved one another. Then things got kind of quiet, and all of a sudden she raised up in her chair and pointed a finger at me. She said, "I'm not going to live much longer. I don't want you to sit in that chair and rust away," he said. Mr. Miller said there are no words to explain the significance of hospice to him and his family during his wife's illnesses. When she had surgery in 2014 and afterward, he was thankful that they both could stay home and get medical care. He said his wife's nurse brought her a little angel. She looked at it every day. The night my wife died, the nurse told us exactly how she would pass, Mr. Miller said. She stayed there until 9 that night, and she wasn't supposed to, and she died just like she said she would. He said Dr. Beverly and community home care and hospice are the best he knows of and would recommend them to anyone. Mr. Miller spent 6 months grieving until he took his late wife's words to heart and began to live again. He now has many friends and continues to give back his community. Between visiting shut-ins, he spends time traveling to see family and eating meals with his many female friends. After about 6 months, I began to think. She told me she didn't want me to sit there in that chair and rust away. He said I started getting out. He said he sees several ladies now. I have 2 special lady friends. One very special, Mr. Miller said, but we're not going to remarry. I'm not going to remarry at my age. We're just friends. His brother owns Western Sizzlin', and he frequents the restaurant every Thursday night. Sometimes I go out and eat with 6 or 7 more women at once at the steakhouse, he said. I feel like a fool sitting here with all of these women. He said he never went out on his wife when they were married, and he would never do anything to put a blemish on his marriage. But I don't feel guilty of nothing I do now, he said. Not seeing other ladies or nothing because of my wife wanting me to do that. More about hospice. Hospice care consultant Dr. Susan Brearley explained that not everyone who are in hospice dies. Hospice is a part of medical care, Medicaid, and private insurance if you qualify, and it doesn't cost anything to do an evaluation, she said. You get a certified CNA that comes out about 3 times a week, and you have a social worker that works with you to see what you can qualify for, and we also have a chaplain that's non-denominational. She said her agency's greatest challenge is that people don't understand hospice. Too often hospice is associated with death and cancer, she said. We have COPD, we have Parkinson's, we have Lou Gehrig's disease, congestive heart failure, liver disease, kidney disease, and dementia, she said. She said volunteers are integral to her agency. To be a hospice volunteer, you go through 50 hours of training and you do a background check, she said. They offer grief counseling to stay with family for 13 months.
Unwashed but well-read with Tim Morris. Contemplating diets. Most of my memories of holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas involve eating with family and friends. As the time changes and there is less light and with it fewer opportunities to exercise, I always manage to gain unwanted pounds. A few years ago, I decided I'd change my diet. I was diagnosed with GERD, also known as gastroesophageal reflux disease. I can't say that it came as a surprise. I knew that aspirating the hydrochloric acid from my stomach in my sleep every time I drank a glass of wine with pizza for dinner wasn't normal. Waking up with a sensation of choking has a way of moving you in the direction of watching what you eat. I've always been skeptical about diets, not just because many seem trendy, it's just that conceptually I've never viewed a diet as anything that required an entire book to understand. In my mind, weigh yourself before you use the bathroom, weigh immediately when you leave the bathroom, then eat food that weighs less than what you left in the bathroom. Then emulate the directions on the back of a shampoo bottle. Lather, rinse, repeat. Soon you will be on your way, W-E-I-G-H, to better health. I call it the Morris Plan. It wasn't long before I realized this revolutionary approach didn't take into account calories. At the advice of a physician, I read a book entitled The Engine to Diet by Rip Esselstyn. I thought I'd give it a try. The theory behind this diet is that consuming animal products threatens your heart health with fat that will clog your arteries. The author's grandfather had demonstrated that much of heart disease is reversible through diet and exercise. After reading the book, replete with handy-dandy recipes, I was convinced I should give it a try. Basically, the Engine 2 diet is you don't get to eat anything that has a mama or a face. In addition, you can't drink any milk or its byproducts, enriched flour or processed sugar. I managed to stay on course for about 4 or 5 months and felt better, even dropped about 10 pounds. I decided to get off the diet after examining my quality of life on the diet versus not being on it. I made a conscious decision to abandon ship after I went to the Irwin IGA after Christmas and saw a hog head ready to be prepared with black-eyed peas for a tasty New Year's Day traditional meal. Next to this head, which had a smug but wry grin, eyes closed disapprovingly, I saw what could have been the feet that used to be attached to the head. I knew tofu and mushrooms wouldn't be in the section that had ham hocks, neck bones, country ham, and other pork products. Yet there I was looking down at this head. I was likely having auditory hallucinations from having only eaten bean burgers, 8 kinds of nuts, and anything leafy that tasted bad. But as I sat there, it dawned on me that humankind had worked hard to achieve evolutionary superiority over their fellow creatures. After all, I was the one staring down at him, not vice versa. Then in my delirium, I imagined he was in fact looking down at me while I wasted away. I heard him say, "All I do for you, Tim, all I sacrifice for you. I give you every part of my body, including the nasty part, chitlings, feet, every part of me but the squeal, and yet you reject me." It was compelling. I made a conscious decision to drop that scientific life-saving diet, bought a package of Fat Back, and went home and gorged. Recognizing my GERD limitations, I did not drink any red wine with it, though. This week, at some point, I will be eating a turkey sandwich slathered with Duke's mayonnaise while watching a football game. Right before I fall prey to the sleeping potion that is injected into the turkey breast, I will probably promise myself that after New Year's I'll get back to eating kale and other such tasty delicacies in an effort to keep my arteries from getting backed up. Observations from the unwashed but well-read, not feeling guilty about my place on the food chain yet. Mr. Morris lives in Irwin. You can contact him by emailing tcmlaw, the number 5, at aol.com.
Daily Digest. Democratic women to meet. The Harnett County Democratic women will hold their monthly meeting Saturday at the Harnett County Democratic headquarters at 1119 North Main Street, Lillington. The site is next to Wendy's. All Democratic women are encouraged to join in as they celebrate the Christmas season. Participants are also asked to bring 2 kitchen mitts. The Democratic women are also collecting copy paper, pencil, pens, glue, tissues, erasers, etc. to replenish supplies for local schools. Wade tree lighting Saturday. The town of Wade will host its 6th annual tree lighting ceremony Saturday at 5:30 p.m. The event will be held in Wade Community Park at 4060 Church Street, Wade. Come out and visit with Santa. Refreshments will be served. Irwin Elementary SIT meeting is Tuesday. Irwin Elementary School will host its monthly school improvement team meeting on Tuesday, December 5th at 3:30 p.m. in the conference room. The first meeting of the new year will be held on Tuesday, January 2nd. The public is invited to attend any monthly meeting. Lillington VFW plate sales Friday. The Veteran of Foreign Wars on 409 South Main Street in Lillington is holding a barbecue plate sale Friday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. with proceeds supporting veteran services throughout the community. The food is featured by Ron's Barn and includes barbecue pork, coleslaw, potatoes, and hush puppies. The cost is $8 per plate.
Emails produced for Central hitter Cameron Hoover. Harnett Central's Cameron Hoover helped herself in recruiting. The middle hitter recently signed with Concord University in Athens, West Virginia. I emailed the coach, Kate Dillon, a few times, Hoover said. She emailed me back and invited me to the summer camp. I went to the summer camp and that's when she offered me my scholarship. The Mountain Lions were 14-20 last season and went 8-8 in the Mountain East Conference. Hoover expects to have the opportunity to contribute immediately. A really hard worker and all of their middles are graduating next year, so I'll be filling in their spots, she said. I'm really excited and I've been working hard. Hoover wants to study psychology. She reflected on her high school career, which included a run to the 3rd round of the 4A playoffs when she was a junior. I've been on varsity for 4 years, Hoover said. Coach Jason Harrell has really helped me out a lot, and a lot of great people. Harrell and Hoover won't easily be replaced. Cameron was a very special player for us, Harrell said. I'm really going to miss her. She did a lot for the program. She's probably been the best middle that has come through the program. She did a lot to get us where we are. Had a lot of success with Cameron. We're truly going to miss her. Hoover is a testimony to what hard work in an email account can do. Worked really hard to get here, Hoover said. I feel accomplished and really excited. Her mother, Krista, said, there isn't a Starbucks on the corner at Concord, but it is a beautiful country.
The latest Washington war. While most of us were recovering from all the turkey and pie last Friday, a showdown was brewing at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. As of Monday, there were 2 people claiming to be the new acting director of the agency. And while the CFPB might not yet be a household name, perhaps it should. Its director is far too powerful, and the tussle over who should possess that power, President Trump's choice or an Obama administration holdover, may be far-reaching consequences. The question of who rightly leads the agency is a complex one, full of technical arguments and arcane legal concepts. But the real story is that the position of the director or acting director is just too powerful. The story began earlier this month when Richard Cordray announced he would resign as director before December. President Trump announced in his intent to name Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney as acting director until a new one could be confirmed by the Senate. However, just hours before resigning Friday night, Cordray tried to handpick his own successor, naming longtime staffer Leandra English to deputy director with the intention that she become acting director on his departure. So who's on first? It's a question which statute takes precedence. The Federal Vacancy Reform Act, which suggests Trump's nominee should now run the agency, or Dodd-Frank, which suggests the position should fall to Cordray's choice, and isn't an easy one to answer. But regardless of who's selected, too much can be done by the acting director in just months. It will take for a new director to be nominated and confirmed. The CFPB was created under Dodd-Frank as an independent agency, and that law does not allow the president to fire the director simply because of a policy disagreement. This isn't unusual, but few other independent agencies are led by individual directors. As director, Cordray has followed a policy driven by ideological zeal, and the agency's short history demonstrates how much damage one person can do in control of the CFPB. For those who support his vision, the fact that he wielded enormous power was a great boon. But the flip side is that Mulvaney, as acting director, will wield the same power, but to forward a very different vision. The solution then is to make the position less important by diffusing this power. As others have argued, the agency, if it must exist at all, would be better structured as a commission, with each commissioner acting as a check on the others. Good government requires that we acknowledge human frailty by limiting any one person's ability to inflict damage. This is the guiding principle behind the Constitution's separation of powers. As it stands, CFPB's structure enshrines just the opposite, rendering it accountable to no one and making its directorship far too sweet a prize.
Mueller gains key witness in Flynn. More smoke, but no smoking gun. Michael Flynn's guilty plea Friday revealed a new layer of lies unearthed by the far-reaching investigation into ties between President Donald Trump and Russia, and put heightened scrutiny on the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The Flynn's admission and all of the criminal cares thus far have not resolved the fundamental question Special Counsel Robert Mueller is seeking to answer. Did Trump's campaign collude with Russia to win the election? Trump himself was eager to settle with that question as he offered his first public response to Flynn's plea, saying Saturday, "What has been shown is no collusion. No collusion. There's been absolutely no collusion." But Mueller has left no doubt that his investigators have amassed a wealth of knowledge about the contacts between Trump associates and the Russians, and they're looking to gather more facts from Flynn, a new key cooperator.
This concludes our reading of the Dunn Daily, the Rayford News, and the Rayford News Journal. Stay tuned for an hour of Raleigh programming, then enjoy Off the Bookshelf at 4 p.m. You can hear rebroadcasts of this program at 7 p.m. on Saturday. Your host has been Vincent Parker
and Robert Bean.
We've enjoyed being with you this afternoon. Thank you for tuning us in. Have a wonderful day.